Good evening, South Sudan, and welcome to another episode of Gender Talk 211. My name is Eva Lopa, and I will be your host. Today, we are discussing a very, very important topic, and that is what is the status of the 35% in the country? What is the 35%? With me here is an amazing, amazing young woman who does great work for this country. And she'll be here to give us more insight on what the 35% actually is and the status of it. Catherine Charles from the Democratic Engagement Monitoring and Observation Program. You are most welcome.
Thank you so much, Eva Lopa. It's my pleasure. I have to say that it's my pleasure to be here today in this episode of Gender Plus Two
Gender Talk 211.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes, it's my pleasure to be here and especially to discuss this important question of affirmative action in South Sudan. So, my name is Catherine Charles. I work for South Sudan Democratic Engagement Monitoring and Observation Program. We focus mainly on legislation, on policy review and legislation process, governance and democracy, gender mitigation and mainstreaming. So I will be happy to share the little that I learned in this discourse around 35% affirmative
Absolutely. Action. If you can actually start off by giving us a brief history about the 35% and how it came to life. We would really appreciate it, please.
Okay, thank you so much. So let's do history, yeah?
Yes.
Let me go back to the Comprehensive Peace Agreement. That's the period of 2005. I don't want to take us so back, but let me just start by the CPA process. So during the CPA process, we know for a fact that South Sudan is a product of the CPA process. So during that time, during the liberation movement, women were there. Women are liberators. So during the process of the CPA, there was within the SPLA movement, there was already a 25%. So I have to mark it. It was 25%. And I just want to put this point very clearly, Eva, is the 25% is a demand. So when women say that we're given 25% or 35%, I just want to emphasize on the 25%. It started since this
from way back. It has been fought for.
Exactly. And
yes.
It's women demand because they contributed. Like when we hear these liberators say that we fought for this country, women have equal shares because during the liberation process, they were there side to side, men and women. So the 25% affirmative action, that's how it started. So when we became a South Sudan during our independence, in our constitution, in Article 16, and the heading states that women rights. If you look our current constitution, Article 16 specifically is on women rights. And then during the process of our constitution, of the transitional constitution, women were like, okay, look here, we're going to have a country, right? So our 25% from the movement during the liberation, now we need to enact it as a law, not only just as a law, but in the supreme law of the country, which is the constitution. And then another point that I want to make it very clear before we move to the 35% that
yes.
come to RRCs. Another point that I have to make it clear that if you look at Article 16, I usually tell people that Article 16 is so rich. Why am I saying that it's so rich? It has four sub-articles under it. One of the key things that it mentioned, it gives women right to public life, participation in public life. And I want us to put this in court. Maybe when we are in the details of the conversation, then we have to go deeper. What is public life? It said that women have right in public life, not only at all level of the government, but also in public life. So that means if we talk about public life, we mean a private sector, public sector, whatever you say. Public life is It's general. So let me just move. Let me shift to RRCs, the Revitalized Agreement on Resolution of Conflict in South Sudan, 2018.
Yes.
So during the process of RRCs, I was not there, but according to the reports and everything, women also demand during that process. I know that they demand for 50-50. So, in any political processes, it's all about negotiation. So it's like, look here, now we need 50, because during the M&E, like during the evaluation of the 25%, even in 2005, 2011, it was not met. So women were there in parliament, women were there in executive, women were there in judiciary system, women were there in commissions, but then the 25% was not met. The 25%. So this time around, women like, okay, fine, conflict has happened. We are finding ways to resolve it. We are moving to a new set of kind of country that we want. But this time around, we want 50-50. So during with a lot of conversation and stuff like that, I know few women that have championed this, the demand for 50-50, but then after all their struggle, they managed to get 35. So that's why the RRCs now says like, look here, now we have 25%, but then we're adding 10% more to be 35% affirmative action for women. So if you look at the RRCs, I have to say that it's a typo. If you look at the RRCs, it says that women participate 35% affirmative action in executive and legislature. So you see where women kind of, it watered down the spirit of the 25% in our constitution. Probably it will be the drafter typo, something like that.
Yes.
But then again, the constitution, when we are incorporating the constitution, the agreement, the RRCs, into the now transitional constitution as amended number 6, we kind of bring back the spirit of 25%. So it's still 35%. If we are doing our advocacy, I know we'll come to that part of our advocacy.
Yes.
But then it's very technical, and women need to understand that, yes, as much as the RRCs will say it's at executive and legislative, but then we have to look back. Right now, we're not working with RRCs. We're working with the transitional constitution as amended. Number 6, amendment number 6.
Right.
So we have to put it clearly. The spirit now is back. That's mean women participation in public life at all level of the government, whether it's at state or national, and in public life.
So that is actually supposed to be the intention.
Yes,
of
the
this
spirit. Yes.
Okay, or the spirit of this 35%.
Exactly.
But that's not what's on paper.
Exactly. But then it's not in RRC. But right now, RRC has been incorporated into the transitional constitution as amended. So right now, if you say that 35% at all level of government and in public life, legally still hold the ground. But then the RRC just ended the 35% at the executive and legislative
level. Okay. Thank you for this brief explanation, or actually introduction to the 35%, and going all the way back to the 25% as well. I remember last year during Gender Talk 2-on-1 show, we spoke to one of our liberators, and a woman who actually fought for the 25%, Honorable Dr. Ann Ito. Yes, she was
a
here.
legend.
She's an absolute legend, iconic in every manner. So she was here and she was talking to us about the 35%, and she went back to the 25% as well. In her conversation, we understood that even within that bare minimum, right? Like within that very little, yes, there was no will to implement. And it was not implemented. The 25% was not implemented. She explained how more fights needed to happen in order for that 25% to be implemented. And it still did not get implemented. What's the status of the implementation of the 35% right now?
If today you demand for something, it's your right. You demand for it because you know what you want out of it. And if you're demanding from a person that, or an institution that you know for sure that it derive you from it from the very beginning, and after a lot of negotiation, a lot of problem, then they admit that it's okay, fine, we'll give you that. So I'm looking at it from the perspective of us as women. What are we doing after we demand for it? That yes, it's 35%. It looks very beautiful in the constitution. It looks very beautiful when we say it in function, when we say it in this political rally, when we say it in the market and everywhere. But then the implementation part of it, implementation part of it is very crucial. So I just have to, allow me to first look at it from the perspective of the environment, the kind of, when today I'm demanding something from you, what is it? Is 35% is a very political, it's very political. And then in politics, usually numbers, influence, resources, this is one thing to give me, is another thing to, to implement it.
Right.
So let me look at it from the political or the governance bit of it. The 35%, we know for a fact that there's so many institutions, or there's so many reports that is out there in media that we can see Party A has nominated this number of, of ministers or MPs, of commissioners or governors, name it, but then women are not there. We know for a fact, it's a fact that the 35% affirmative action is lagging behind. Its implementation is 17%. I think there was a research or a calculation, a matrix that has been done by one of the organizations, and that is lagging, I think, 17% of it, if my facts are right. 17% of it only, its implementation. Out of 35% is just 17%. So I want to look at it from this way. The process of attaining that 35% is very political in nature, and it has different political parties. Let me just give by the principle. Let's say SPLA and SPLA-IO. SPLA-IO as a party, they have that their affirmative action is 40%.
Okay.
As a party, at a party level, is 40%. And then SPLA-IG, I think they're working still with it, 35%. But then we should look at the political party hierarchy. In the political party, where are women? It's like, where are women in this political party? If we look at IO, how many women signed in for that political party? How many women signed in SPLA? How many women signed in other political party? How many women as South Sudan, how many women do we have that are very active in political party? That's one thing. But we can still look deeper at it, in a sense that in this political party, it governs with their memorandum of association. That's their party constitution. And it has hierarchy, because within the party there's different hierarchy. So there's a chairperson, and then there is a deputy secretariat, and all this kind of thing. We have to look at it deeper, in a sense that how many women do we have that are heading political party? Because for example, in SPLA, they have the political bureau, like that's the highest organ of their party, and then it makes decision, of appointment, of anything, how the party, the outlook of the party. And then we have to look at it in that sense. And then the RRCs, again, I have to take us back to the RRCs.
Of course.
It has opened so many opportunities. For me, I usually feel like women should look at it, because there's review of different legislation. And as a SSuDEMOP, we've been working in this process and looking at those legislation from a gender responsive perspective. So let me just, for the sake of this topic, let me just say that the Political Party Act, it was 2020, we look at it so that we can make submission to the National Constitution Review Commission. And then one of the key thing that the political party act, we make sure that at least 35% affirmative action in the political party should be met. But one of the other thing, not just in the political parties, but at the top hierarchy of the political party,
Right.
Because in political party usually, the more you are somewhere up, there is high likely for you to be nominated, because if you are at the decision level in your party, then you can easily influence, you can easily, So this act is still a bill, so probably once the parliament is reconstituted, then it becomes very easy for the accountability purpose, because if today in your party, if the chairperson is a he, then definitely the political party act will make it like the deputy, or if the chairperson is a she, then the deputy has to be a he. Like for example, in South Africa, there's this zebra way of doing it. So you kind of have to, if it's a he, then it's a she. If it's a she, then it's a he. For us to kind of meet the affirmative action, So for me, I look at it, it's not just the question of bring A and then put it, but then the problem is deeper, even at the party level. We kind of have to, I don't know if I'm talking a lot.
No, it makes absolute sense. It's very, very educative. I mean, it has to start from within the party to where someone is actually trusted in decision making within the party in itself, for them to be trusted in positions that are higher than the party.
Yeah, exactly. And then even not only that, because if women are leading these parties, then they have influence to, influence in a sense that they usually, there's this notion that if women is in a leadership position, they don't leave people behind. They look at the issue in a very comprehensive manner. So, and then another thing that we hear, that most, like this notion out there, people encourage women that go join political party, go join political party. If you join political party, you get 35%. I was like, no.
That's not what it is.
Yes, I was like, no, to join a political party. If today, if you ask me to go and join a political parties have hierarchy. I will be who? If today I'm
right.
If I'm joining a political party, because a political party is an entity, you know. So, and then with politics, is numbers, influence, and resources.
Right.
And women don't have that resources, because maybe if I have enough resources to influence my party, or bringing a lot of resources to my party, there's high likely maybe I will make it somewhere up. But then if we force women to join political party, I bet there's so many of them just as party members, but in those parties, they are not at the influential, position. Because if I join today, if my party constitution said that at least for you to have 5 years in this party, for you to move to maybe a somehow position within the party, or you'll be nominated, because even within the party
you have to get nominated.
Exactly.
Right.
So there is no way you ask women right now with the implementation of RRCs, you people, if you want 35%, because I keep hearing that if you want 35%, go join political party. And what?
I have there's a lot of misinformation about the 35% out there. And I have heard this part specifically of that. If you want to be appointed or put in a position of leadership, you have to be in a political party, or you have to join a political party. I've heard that numerous times. So give us more clarity on.
Right now, when we encourage women to join different political parties, so that the 35% to be attained, it's, for me, we need to do more of, we have to, strategy, like that's the, I think
that's the word.
Exactly. We have to do strategy, because if today I'm going to join a political party, like, what's my interest? How is that political party like? What is my cut? Because politics is all about numbers, influence, and money. So what is it that, if I'm joining political party from a very young age, let's say that 18 years old, or 19 years old, I will grow into that party.
Right.
And eventually I will get that. But with our case, because it's an affirmative action, because there's a lot of historical injustices that has happened to women, there's this, it's an affirmative action. This is like at least 35%, so that women should be in position and stuff like that to influence and then to be part and parcel of the society or in a governance structure and everything. But then we need to look at the structure of the party. We cannot just say, that's why we see cases like, if the pressure is too much for one party to appoint a woman, they'll just pick someone that is close to them, because that's influence.
Correct.
Because that's influence, then it will act as a disadvantage to women.
Correct.
Women emancipation.
Correct.
It will be like, now it's just representation without participation.
Correct. And it's important to note that no one is going to come from outside the party and say, we pick this woman.
Exactly.
The party has to say, we nominate this person.
Exactly. That's why I'm saying that there's three key things. Politics is all about influence, resources, and then it's like, yes, it's about interest, resources,
and influence.
Influence, yes, exactly. Thank you for reminding me. So
Yeah.
these three key things. That's why there is no way you can come to a political party. I want you to pick this woman because that woman, we think that it will represent and stuff like that. So if we're going to influence to achieve the 35%, we have to start nurturing our young women.
Yes.
To join these political parties. Like, yes, if you like it, if that's what you want to do, we have to nurture them into it. If we reach in this situation whereby we don't have them, then we have to do our influence. Our influence can be through different legal framework, like the political party act that is under review. We have to impose to these parties to
Right.
be as the law that in your highest hierarchy of your party, you have to meet the at least 35% affirmative action. That's influence. And then if we want to bring women, then we have to empower women with resources, because today politics is all about negotiations. Like, put for me this person, put for me, for example, Eva. I want Eva to be in parliament. As women, we
Right.
have this enough resources to back you up and then do this, because we believe this is our candidate. We need to look at it from a very negotiating, so there's,
Position.
yeah.
Thank you so much. I mean, going back to what you were saying, I think that we can present as challenges of implementing the 35%. We've also seen within women themselves, we've seen that there is no, I don't want to call it distribution of power, but we're not seeing new women come in. We're not seeing young women come in. We're seeing the same women being appointed, the same women that are put in leadership positions. We're seeing the same women being circulated. And this has been going for a long time within each and every one of the parties. It's the same faces that we've been seeing for, I'm going to say, more than 20 years, that are still here, that we're still depending on to make change and to get things done. What happens? Why is that a challenge? What is happening with grooming, let me say, young women, and also putting them in positions that they're able to make big decisions or decision-making platforms in general? And the 35% in itself, I've seen the agreement, RSS. I knew you were coming, so I knew I had to get ready, because I know you're by the book. But no, I've seen it before. I've read it before. The 35%, like you said before, looks very good. It looks very good on paper. What kind of work is being done when we see that it's not implemented? Is there a platform that women discuss things on? Is there even communication between what you were saying earlier? It should be a public, or the intention was to also have a public means to the 35% as well, or reflected in the 35% as well. Is there a communication between women in politics and women in social life or in public? Yes. What is the nature of it?
When you say that the same women, whether in executive level, judiciary, or parliament, it's like we're just recycling. But we
Correct.
have to look at it. It's not just only the same women, also the same men. There's a lot of
That are right.
recycling. And then if we look at political party, because everything depends at the political party level, and what is your influence at that party. And then we stress that point a lot. I don't want us to go back, but then I just want to focus on the question that you say about, I can put it like an intergenerational kind of dialogue. Let me just
Yes.
say that, a mentorship and stuff like that. I know since 2020 there was there's so many institutions, so many organizations, and they're doing this conversation about, especially with women, that I have attended several of it, whereby they bring these women leaders and then with young women to ask the question, to bridge this intergenerational gap, or what's happening between this generational A and B, because we really want to see new faces, but not only at the highest, because we know that at the highest level sometimes you kind of have to take a bit of mentorship and all this kind of process. But I want to say with this new, especially in parliament right now, they reconstituted the new parliament.
Yes.
And there's a lot of young women.
Oh, yes.
And there's
Yes.
a lot of young faces that in this parliament. And
Some of them are already doing work.
yes,
Doing
and
amazing work.
yes, and it's something that we need to acknowledge.
Absolutely.
It's something that, even if we're not seeing much at the executive level, but then at least we're seeing young, especially like in our parliament right now, I know that there's young women that they're doing amazing. I don't want to praise them that high. I don't want to raise the bar, so please don't disappoint us. That's a disclaimer. We don't want to raise the bar up, but we are watching you. But then it's something that, like, we have to acknowledge that this thing is happening. Another question that you have mentioned about the communication.
Yes.
The communication
Between the different spaces. For example, you have women that are activists, right? You have women that are in politics. You have women that are in business, just different spaces coming together. And ideally, the 35% should be formed from all of these spaces, right? But how do we get there if there's no conversation happening between the women in these spaces?
Yeah. Okay. Yes. I that's your point, and then it will all water down to interest. If today, an interest plus the question of awareness.
Yes.
Awareness. The first, not the first time when I realized about the 35 affirmative action, or the affirmative action in general, I took the initiative to educate myself. I took the initiative. Nobody told me, like, oh, go read this, do your research or something like that. I took the initiative to educate myself. When someone said that, it's at 35%, I was like, no, I'm not 35%. I'm not 35%, right? Because there is no way today, if I went with a boy child to the same school, my school was both, it
was a mixed school.
It was a mixed school. So there is no way, if my colleague that I went with same school, and then we are competing for something, let's just say, and then at the end of the day I will be equated to 35%. And then I realized that us as women, there's a need for us to unpack the 35%. We need to unpack the 35%. What is it? You know, sometimes I say that when we talk 35%, even those who are not 35% will put it in the same basket, and then we'll end up having lower number. You know, I can go, if we want to influence any process, I will be like, I'm going on 50-50 foot.
Right.
My friend, my colleague Eva, that at least there's this she missed, maybe let's say that she's a form 3 dropout, I'm a bachelor, you know, and then Eva will come as 35% affirmative action, and we'll have so many sisters in the room influencing the process. But then the question is, did we unpack 35% as women of South Sudan? Did we even with the 25%, one of the things that I was doing, I was like, is there any M&E, you know, like M&E? I was like, okay, after 5 or 6 years, we need to see the progress of the 35%. How much gain did we make? What is there? What is the problem? What is our strategy? Because I know when the process of formation of the Artigono, there was a lot of women activists that was like, if today degree come out, and then the first thing I usually do, I look at the list like this, and then I'm like, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh my goodness, they missed it. And then the next thing we write and do statement, we do press release, we vent our frustration, and then it become like this Christmas jingle. You know, it's like, yeah, it's just Christmas, we know, and it will pass. You know, it's more like we say, party A do this, and then we put a statement like, yeah, the women at it again. They will knock like this, and after sometimes they will do, you know. And then another thing, we need to look at the strategy. You know, what kind of a strategy? If today you are not listening to my statement, if today you are not listening to my press release, what next? What is it that I need to do for you to say, like, look here, this is very important, you know? And I know there was a case, a constitutional case about the 35% that is still hanging in our judiciary. But then another element of it, the Ministry of Gender as a focal person in championing the women rights in general. So for me, we need to also ask them to be accountable. Is it too much for them because it's gender, child, social welfare? Is it too much for them? Is there a need for us to have women commission? Because we have so many commission in this country.
We do.
Anti-corruption commission, we have election commission. Is there time for women to start look at like, no, now it's time for us to have women commission, so that at least if we have a commission that is specifically on women issue, now we have to do the M&E with our 35%, and we have to look at avenues of how we can reclaim that, you know. And I know that in 2011, the 25%, there were women that were appointed. There was seat for women, and there's some men in parliament actually was appointed for that seat, and women really demand, so have like, no, this is our seat, and those men needs to be relieved from it so that women should occupy it. So back to your question about the interconnect of women from different sectors. I look at it in a way that women are, as much as we are women, but then we are not homogeneous. Like, you know, we are not just women and that's it. We have our different interests, we have our different aspiration and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's very important to establish that kind of linkages between all this, because I know that 35%, even in market, you know, we hear people say that I eat at 35%. We hear that 35%. Even women in the market, they know about 35%. But to what extent?
Right.
The level of awareness. Have we unpacked 35% enough to know that in this public sector, by 35%, it means even at education level, the girl child in a primary school, we need to have policy that, you know, is 35% because she is a woman. She is a girl.
Yes.
So this 35%, we need to have affirmative action even in education sector, that girl A that usually go to the school and then come back, cook and stuff like that. At least when examination she got 70 and she wants to do medicine, we need to have affirmative action for her. For girls, like if you get 70, at least you have to pursue that because of some few reason. That's why you are not able to attain that. What about the school fees? We can really, if we unpack 35%, we can influence it in every aspect of our country, because women constitute almost majority of this population. So that means any problem that is women, any problem of the society is women problem.
You know, this is very enlightening because even when, like, awareness is very, very important, because even when you say women at the market even know the 35%, that's very, very true. I have interviewed a few women for this very show who know about the 35%, but then that's all they know. 35%. And then also you meet the most common opinion or view of the 35% that I have heard is that the 35% is for specific women. And that's women in politics. That's the view that I get from many, many, many women, and not just at grassroots or those who don't have access to it. It's many women who actually have even read the agreement in itself do not have that information. They're not fully informed on what 35% means. And also I feel that many times, I mean, now we live by the 35% as the limit. You know what I mean?
It's the bare minimum.
Yes, bare minimum, correct. But we treat it as if that's what we have, that's all we can have, right? But the aim is to actually go for 50-50. That's always forgotten. Yes, it's important that the status of its implementation is monitored. Very, very important. But then we can't all monitor its status. Yes, we'll get the report and let's do what we can do to make sure that it is implemented. But we exist within every single space in the country. I don't care. Tell me any sector. We exist. We are there. And we're capable of dominating. But we hold back and we don't do the work. We don't go through the process. One, because we don't think it concerns the 35%. And then two, there's no awareness, not just about the 35%, but there's no awareness that moving forward, change can happen. So you have to be prepared for that moment when it comes. Because when we sit at tables to where we have to negotiate, trust me, when the Rebecca Joshuas of the country, when the Ann Itos of the country sat and negotiated for the 25%, they had done a lot of work.
Exactly, I agree.
That's what made it possible for them to actually get there. And for us, it seems that we are not prepared. If this conversation was to happen tomorrow, we can't.
Yes. I think it's very sad. It's very sad that the like of Honorable Rebecca Joshua and then Honorable Annie To, they have set the foundation, and they continue to do it up to now. And then the advocacy around 35%, that's the most important thing that you have mentioned. The advocacy of 35%. The RRCs has been incorporated to the transitional constitution. And then if you look at the amendment number 6, it's very rich. It's 35% at all level of government, 35% in public life. And no public life, there's no limitation.
Right.
The definition is it's like how you define public life. You have to demand. That's why we hear people That's why we hear women in the market say that 35%, 35%. But how do we use that when there's like 35%? How do we use that in their interest?
Right.
How can we educate them that when they tell you 35%, you have to use that as, yes, 35%. If the whole place is selling all men, you say like, yes, it's my 35%. Give me a quarter here, I want to sell. That kind of.
Okay.
It's like,
yes.
Sometimes they use this 35. Sorry to say that, but then sometimes they use this 35% to demoralize women, to make you look like you're just 35%.
Right.
But how about we have to look at it from a very positive point of view? Yes, I'm 35%. You have so much. Give me the 35%.
Give it exactly. Give me the 35%.
That kind of thing. So it's all about how we unpack the 35% affirmative action, the awareness that we are making out there as organization, as government official, as people in private sector. Unpack the 35%. Nobody will say that. Nobody will come and teach you about 35%, or if you have an interest, it's something that's of interest to all of us women of South Sudan.
Thank you so much. That was very rich from you, very informative. I think I even went off script. Every question that I had did not matter anymore. I had different questions, but thank you so much for coming in. The last thing that I wanted to ask you was actually, how do we improve? How do we get to the implementation of the 35%? I think a part of it is the advocacy bit that you've just been speaking on. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to that?
Yes, I think I would just like to, I don't know how it will happen. I'm just thinking out of the box. I'm just thinking out loud. But it's time for us to have a commission for women. Commission for women is specifically on women issue. I know countries like I don't know, South Africa or Malawi, I'm not sure, but then they have a commission for women. And usually what happens, this commission has the mandate to follow affirmative action, to follow women issue. It's just commission for women issue. So I think it's time for us to demand that. It's time for us to, because one of the key things is leave alone the aspect of knowledge, but then the aspect of implementation,
Yes.
Implementation, or how do we safeguard that? How do we reach from 25% to 35%? Like, we really jump from 25%. If we ask so many women, what does 25% feel like? 25% is just like yesterday.
Right.
But then is it documented? I'm that one person that was looking so hard. I want to read about it, the spirit of it and stuff like that. But then we jump to 35%, which is lagging behind. This, it's time for us as women. We have to kind of hibernate and look at our problem as women. So yes,
a women's commission. I'm definitely here for it. Before, I said we need a women's a ministry for women of some sort, because you realize that the ministry of gender is not really a women's ministry, but it's always associated with women.
Which is wrong. Gender is not.
Exactly. That is not it. Correct. So we needed a women's ministry, but we'll go with your plan. Okay, we'll agree on that. No problem. Let's do a women's commission. I don't know if you're listening, but you better hear very, very clearly if you are. We need to demand more. Okay, ladies, women out there, if you're listening, we need to demand more. And even more, what I'm getting from your conversation is we need to educate ourselves on what the 35 affirmative action actually means. You need to educate yourself. And once you do educate yourself, educate other women as well. Excellent. Because for us to actually come together, we have to know what we're talking about when we get to talk about it. And for any action to actually happen, we need to understand how far we can go with this. Exactly. And then plan to even go further.
Exactly.
Yes, but hopefully, I'm really hoping that the 35% gets implemented and soon, that actually happens. I mean, I don't even think the 25 bit of the 35 is actually implemented right now. We haven't even reached the 25 yet, which is absolutely terrible. I mean, on paper it says something, and then in action it's not. And we are witnesses to what is happening right now. We are watching it happen and not saying anything. A few weeks ago, it's been a conversation that the 35% is not implemented, and what is happening. And also with new decrees that come in, women are lower and lower in participation.
Exactly. And I was telling, as I was telling you earlier, it's more of like they give from one hand and then they take from another with the degrees. It's more like they give you from this hand and then they pick it up from the other hand. It's very sad.
It's extremely sad. But then you said men are also circulating. I think that's what
Yes.
you were saying, and that's very true. But I think just something to point is that already we have more men than women
Exactly.
in leadership spaces.
I agree.
So the circulation of men,
It's okay, kind of.
not okay, not okay. The circulation of men, I'm not saying it's okay. Noted.
Yes,
Noted.
yes.
But now the circulation of women is absolutely noted and noticeable. Right? So you see that when you take from women, we can really notice that.
Exactly. Just a question. I like out of a situation whereby will you rather prefer the circulation or rather the degree that pick women out and bring men in
The circulation or?
of the same women, like at the end of the day it's the same person but then it's still a woman, or we want a new face but then the party will bring a man. So I was like, yeah, I'm just thinking.
Right. No, I get you. But ideally, I would like more women, new women, all women. I would like.
Exactly. That's why I keep telling you that we have to influence. We don't have to look at influence from the highest level, but we have to look influence also from the political party,
Right.
within the political party. And that's why there's a need to know what's happening in these political parties. What are the legal framework that is guiding them? How do women, maneuver their way? How do we protect women's interest in those political spaces? Because women that are in political parties, those are our sisters, yeah?
Right.
So we have to
Right.
protect them. Maybe they are suffering there in silence. There's this harsh law or there's this harsh party rule and regulation that are making them not to, come up or something like that. So it's very important that as much as we aspire at at the bigger picture, we need to look deep down at the lowest level, especially if we want to influence the political position. We have to look at the political parties. We are coming for political parties.
I just love how you talk. I'm nominating you.
No.
I don't know for what, but I'm nominating you. You can speak for me and represent me anywhere. Thank you so much, Catherine, for coming in and just letting you know from now on, anything I hear about 35%, I'm calling you and you're coming on this show to tell us what is happening and what is going on.
I'm humble. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Eva, for
thank you,
having me.
thank you so much for being here. All of the work, the amazing work that you do, and actually just in 1 hour, not even 1 hour, well, in 1 hour, I've learned so much, and I've actually read the agreement, right? But I still learned so much because you find agreements not being very clear. So it leaves space for you to assume a lot of things.
Yes.
So thank you so much for bringing clarity to that. I hope I will have you back on the show again, and not just when we hear that it's not implemented. When we hear good things, we would love for you to come in and also update us, tell us about it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
And thank you
so much.
Thank you, our audience, for tuning in. This is Gender Talk 211. My name is Eva Lopa, and we are out. Have a good night.